Actually, today's class will be on the third tag matter of insects, that is abdomen. We will be discussing about the abdomen. Abdomen, this class won't be an extremely lengthy class. This will be a short class. Hardly 30 to 35 minutes will be the length of this class. We won't be discussing much about abdomen in detail for UG section. And I will be coming back again for one more class that will be after the completion of Manichalapan sir's class, because Manisha will be completing the embryology egg and all. I will take over the post-embryonic part later, metamorphosis and all. I will take it later. So today will be with respect to morphology. With respect to the morphology aspects, this will be the last class. I'll be. I've given all up to last class. I have given the PPT as well as the videos of the recordings of these classes. You can watch it again and again if you need any clarifications. So, as you all know, abdomen is the third tag matter of insects, and this is where the genital appendages are situated. Mostly the genital appendages are situated in this abdominal area, along with most of the physiological system. Major part of the digestive system is in the abdomen. A part of the nervous system, circulatory system, respiratory system, almost all physiological systems. A part of it will be located in the abdomen. And in most of the insects, this is the most conspicuous tag matter. This is the tag matter which we can easily which is easily visible in the insects other than thorax and head, because in certain insects head will be extremely small and the thorax will be covered with wings, and also the head and thorax may not be that visible, but abdomen, it is the most visible part of an insect body. And we have seen that all the thoracic segments are having one or the other appendages. All the three thoracic segments are having legs. In the same manner, the abdominal segments are also have the ability to develop appendages. But dude, we have discussed about the relation of insects with other groups of arthropods. We have discussed about diplopods and chylopods, centipedes and millipedes. These centipedes and millipedes are having the each appendages in each segment. In the same manner, though we don't see any appendage on the insect abdominal segment, the insect abdomen had the ability to develop segments in each appendages in each abdominal segment. But as the insect evolved over time, that ability was lost, and that certain genes which code for the development of appendages is suppressed. That's why the appendages are not formed. Scientists has now evolved techniques to make that gene work in the insect itself, so that the insect can develop appendages in the abdomen. So that is the theoretical part. So here the insect abdomen can be divided into three regions. Hope you remember the number of segments in an abdomen. It is in head we told it is 6 or 7. In the thorax we told it is 3. In abdomen it is 11 segments, but in one primitive order, that is, it's not an insect order, it's in another non-insectant class now. In Protura we have 11 segments plus one telson. So if some textbooks referred insect abdomen as having 12 segments, but normally it should be represented as 11 plus telson. So if we consider 11 segments in an insect abdomen, up to segments from 1 to 7, we call it as pregenital segments, because the 8th and 9th segments are having the genital appendages. That means the male and female genital appendages are present in the 8th and 9th abdominal segments. So all those segments before the genital segments, that is 8th and 9th segments, they are called as the pregenital. That means before the genital segments. And those segments which are after the genital segments, that is 8th and 9th, that is 10th and 11th. The 10th and 11th segments are called as the post-genital abdominal segments. So I will repeat. The abdomen, it has 11 segments plus 1,000 in primitive protura. So if we have 11 segments, the genital appendages, that means female, male and female genital organs are located on the 8th and 9th segments. So those abdominal segments which are before the genital segments, these are called as the pregenital segments, and those segments after the genital segments are called as the postgenital segments. So, if any appendage is present in the pregenital segments, those appendages are called as the pregenital appendages. There are certain, in most of the insects, we don't see any pregenital appendage. So, in certain primitive insects, we can see pregenital appendage, and in certain larval pterygotes means those winged insects, the larval stages of insects, we can see pregenital appendages. That means appendages before the genital segments. But in non-insectant hexapods, we can see abdominal appendages in the pregenital segments also. That we will discuss later. And we have the most common abdominal appendage which we see in insect are cerci and reproductive. Reproductive organs are invariably present in all insects. So that is common from all insect group. And another common abdominal appendage is cerci. We will discuss about cerci later. And if this cerci is present in the postgenital abdominal segments, that is between 10th and 11th segments. So the cerci is another common abdominal appendage present in current group of insects. And the pregenital appendages now we see mostly in larval stages of insects and in non-insectant hexapods. So we have seen the number of segments 11, and in protura we have 11 segments, that is 12 segments, that is 11 plus 1000, and there is a slight difference in the development of abdomen in the case of protura. In protura, at the time of hatching of the insect from the eggs, the insect will be having 8 abdominal segments only. But with each mold, I think you remember what is molting. With each mold, the insect will add 1 abdominal segment each. So at the time of hatching from the egg, the young one will be having 8 segments in the abdomen. With each mold, it will add, but that means after first mold, it will be having 9 segments. After second mold, it will be having 10 abdominal segments, and after third molting it will be having 11 abdominal segments, and there will be a telson after this. So this addition of abdominal segments with each mold, that is called as anamorphosis. Remember this term, anamorphosis. This is usually asked in questions, asked in examinations and all. So protura, that is the only group which is having this phenomenon wherein with each mold the number of abdominal segments are added. This is called as anamorphosis. While in all other insect groups, it is epimorphic development. Epimorphic means the number of abdominal segments remains constant throughout the life stage. It won't increase or decrease during the developmental time. So that is epimorphic development. In anamorphic development, that is seen in protura, the number of abdominal segments are added with each mold. Another difference in the number of abdominal segments is in another non-insectant hexapod, that is columbola. In columbola, we had discussed in insects are having 11 abdominal segments, protura having 11 plus 1000. But in columbola, we have only 6 abdominal segments. So, in non-insectant hexapods, the number of abdominal segments vary. In protura, it has an anamorphic development. It has 12 segments, that is 11 plus 1000. In columbola, which is another non-insectant hexapod, it is having only 6 abdominal segments. And compared to head and thorax, the abdomen is less sclerotized. It is more or less flexible in nature. So that is one feature. Head is extremely sclerotized. We call it as head capsule. Thorax, because of the presence of locomotory appendages such as legs and wings, it is again a sclerotized tagmata. And while abdomen, it is less sclerotized, it is more or less flexible. And this thing, the organization of abdomen into pregenital, genital, and postgenital regions that we have discussed earlier. The genital segments are the 8th and 9th, and then those segments before it is called as the pregenital segments, and the 8th and 9th segments are the genital segments, and the segments after the 8th and 9th, that is 10th and 11th, are the postgenital segments. And if we see the genital segments, the male genital appendage is present on the 9th abdominal segment, while females it is on the 8th and 9th. You see, it is located on the sternum, that is the ventral side of the insect body. So remember the tergum, sternum, pleuron, all these terms are here in abdomen too. Tergum is for the dorsal region, sternum is for the ventral region, and the lateral area we call it as the pleura. In thorax only, the tergum we call it as notum. So the genital appendage, the reproductive structures in males, it is located in the 9th sternum. In females, it is located in the 8th and 9th sternum. So this is the general organization of insect abdomen. So this is a picture: head, thorax, and abdomen. See, that's why we call it is more conspicuous compared to head and thorax. This is the most visible part of an insect body. And first we will see the pregenital segments. It is from the segments 1 to 7. I told 8 and 9 we have reproductive appendages. So segments 1 to 7 are the pregenital segments. And in most of the segments, in most of the insects, the first abdominal segment is usually fused with metathorax. And we may not be able to differentiate between metathorax and first abdominal segment. So that is one typical feature with the abdomen of most of the insects, wherein the first abdominal segment is fused with metathorax. In Hymenoptera, this is entirely modified. The first abdominal segment is fused with metathorax and it is called as propodium. And the second and third segment forms an elongated narrow petiole. I will show you what is it, elongated narrow petiole. And the rest of the abdominal segments are called as gaster. So the pregenital region of insect abdomen is extremely modified in the case of Hymenopterans. In Hymenoptera, the first abdominal segment is fused with the metathorax, and this part is called as the propodium. The second and third segment, it is a narrow structure, it is called as the petiole, and from 4 to 11 we call it as the gaster. That is, the rest of the segments after propodium and petiole we call it as the gaster. See this, I am showing a picture of an ant. So this is, see, this is the head, this is the thorax. Can you see this? This is the first abdominal segment which is fused with metathorax, and this is called as the propodium. And you can see the second and third abdominal segments. The second and third abdominal segments are elongate, thin, elongate, and this is petiole. And the remaining part of the abdomen, that is called as the gaster. I will repeat, this is the head, thorax, this is the metathorax and first abdominal segment fused to form the propodium. That's why you can see this is foreleg, mid leg, hind leg. The hind leg is emerging from this part, you see it in this picture. And the second and third abdominal segment, it is elongated into a narrow structure called as petiole, and the rest of the segments is called as the gaster. See, this head is prognathous. You can see, I told you example of a prognathous head is ants. The mouth parts are directed anteriorly. See the mandibles, extremely strong mandibles. So again, this is another picture. Head, thorax. This is propodium. This first abdominal segment and metathorax fused. And this is the narrow structure petiole. This node you avoid. This is not usually seen in many insects, but it is seen in some insects, but it's not common. And the remaining segments is gaster. This modification, we see it in hymenopteran. Hymenopterans include bees, ants, wasps, etc. കടന്നലുകള്, തേനീച്ച, ഉറുമ്പ് ഇതൊക്കെ വരുന്ന ഗ്രൂപ്പാണ് hymenoptera. So hymenopteran groups includes bees, wasps, and ants. All these insects are having this kind of abdominal organization. And that is with respect to the first changes in the pregenital abdominal segments. And therefore then we will see the abdominal appendages in the pregenital segment. Pregenital abdominal appendages, I told you, these appendages are usually present in non-insectal hexapods. In normal insects, we don't see this pregenital abdominal appendages. In non-insectal hexapods, we usually see pregenital abdominal appendages. The first pregenital abdominal appendage we will discuss will be in columbola. I think this columbola and all as teacher has told you. The first segment bears an appendage called as colophore. The term colophore originated from cola means glue, that means a sticky nature. Pherin to bear, that means colophore is a glue bearing appendages. So it helps the insect to attach itself or adhere itself to a surface. So the first segment in the abdominal segment in columbola has an appendage called as colophore. This is an appendage which helps the columbolans to attach itself to a substrate. It is a glue bearing segment. So that is with respect to the first abdominal segment. Then we have appendage in the third and fourth abdominal segment. These appendages helps the movement of columbolans. The third segment is having an abdominal appendage called as retinaculum or hamulum. The third abdominal segment is having an appendage called as retinaculum or hamula, and the fourth abdominal segment is having another appendage called as furca. So the first abdominal segment in columbola have colophore, third is having retinaculum, fourth is having furca. And I will show the picture. I will show, yes. See, this is the head, this is the thorax, pro, see the foreleg, meso, this is the mid leg, and metathorax. And see the first abdominal segment over here. You can see this is the colophore. This will help the insect to attach itself to a substrate. So this is first abdominal segment. This is second, third. Here on the ventral surface of the third abdominal segment, we have retinaculum, but retinaculum is not that visible. And this is the fourth abdominal segment. It has a furca or furcula. In some textbook, it's referred to as furcula also. So what the columbolans will do is, here it's another picture. It is a diagrammatic representation. Colophore. So this is the first, second, third, and fourth. Fourth is having furca. In the third segment, here you can see retinaculum. What the insect will do is consider this as the retinaculum, the third segment, and this is the furca on the fourth segment. This retinaculum will be held tightly by the retinaculum. So when the insect wants to move, the retinaculum releases the furca, and Hello? Anything? Okay. The retinaculum releases the furca and this furca will strike hardly onto the surface. And because of the striking of the furca onto the surface, insect will jump. So this furca is called as springing organ. It just acts like a spring. So you can imagine like this. Consider furca as a spring and retinaculum as a hook which holds together the spring. Once the hook is released, the spring will strike hardly onto the surface, and because of the striking force of this furca, the insect will jump. So that is why it is called as furca is called a springing organ. You can see this furca will be attached onto the retinaculum on here, and once the retinaculum releases the furca will strike hard onto the surface and insect will move forward, jump forward. Hence, furca is called as springing organ. So, furca, the springing organ that is located on the fourth retinaculum, helps to keep the furca in position. So, the predental abdominal appendages in columbola, first segment have colophore, third segment have retinaculum, and fourth segment have furca. Coming to the next, that is styli. Styli is usually seen in another group of non-insectant hexapod, that is Dipleura, and also in Thysanura. And all the segments from 1 to 7, that means all the pregenital abdominal segments are having styliform appendages. Styliform means very small appendage. You can see this is a picture of a Dipleura. You can see very small appendage over here. If you see this, you sometimes you can think it as a centipede or a millipede. So just like centipede or millipede having appendage in each segment, similar to that, each segment is having very small appendage. This is called styliform appendages or styles. This is mainly seen in Dipleura and also in Thysanura. The purpose of this style, like very small appendage, is to raise the abdomen from the, this is the styliform appendage. The function of styli is to raise the abdomen from the ground as when the insect moves, from the when the insect walks. So the styliform appendages helps the insect to raise the abdomen above the ground while moving. So styli or styliform appendages is commonly seen in Dipleura. Before discussing about the genital segments, we won't be discussing in detail about genital segments, that we will discuss at last. We will discuss about post-genital segments. These post-genital segments, I told you, these are the 10th and 11th segments. And in most of the insects, these two segments are fused together. And the 10th segment is sometimes called as, in many insects, it is called as pygidium or rump segment. I will show you. See, this is the back posterior side of the beetle, and you can see this is the 10th segment. This 10th segment is called as the pygidium or rump. So that is the case of the 10th abdominal segment. It is called as pygidium or rump, and this sometimes this 10th abdominal, we can't say an appendage over here, but in certain insects there are some abdominal appendage from the 10th segment, and these are called as the pygopods because the appendage from pygidial segment, hence it is called as pygopods. Leave about pygopods, it's not needed for it for PG students. So just remember that the 10th abdominal segments is called as pygidium or rump, and these postgenital appendage, the postgenital segment bears an appendage called cerci, which is very common in many insect orders. And this cerci, we have a pair of cerci, which is arises from the membranous area between 10th and 11th segments of each side of the body. I will show you. See, this is a cockroach. We can clearly see a cerci in cockroach. You can see two abdominal appendages. This arises from the junction between 10th and 11th abdominal segments. And this cerci, I think you might have seen these insects. We call it as earwig. If you sometimes when you lift a stone in a ground, നമ്മളൊരു കല്ലല്ലോ ഇച്ചിരി വലിയ കല്ല് മണ്ണിൽ കിടക്കുന്ന കല്ലൊന്ന് മറിച്ചു നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ you can see this kind of insects and these are called as earwigs. Earwig എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. So here the cerci are modified, sclerotized into forceps-like structures. So cerci is sometimes present in many insect order and it has some modification also. I'll show you another picture of cerci later. So cerci is one of the most common genital postgenital appendage in insect. It is present between 10th and 11th segment. It is most common in Dipleura. Dipleura that is a non-insectine group. In insect group, it is seen in Ephemeroptera, Odonata, Orthoptera. You will study about Ephemeroptera, Odonata, and Orthoptera in taxonomy class. Odonata is dragonflies, Orthoptera it is grasshopper. And these are true appendages, though it is present in the junction between 10th and 11th, it is considered as the appendage of the 11th segment. And it is a multi-segmented, that means numerous segments will be there and it has sensory function also. As I showed you in the earlier picture, cerci is modified into a forceps, sclerotized forceps-like structure in Dermaptera. Dermaptera is nothing but earwigs. And sometimes the cerci is modified into a respiratory structure into a gill-like structure. Gill, you might have studied the respiratory organ in fishes are gills. So, just like that, in order to aid the respiration in aquatic insects, we have the cerci modified into a respiratory gill in Zygoptera. Zygoptera is nothing but damselflies. I think Zenitator is now taking up the Paleopteran orders, wherein you will be discussing about Odonata, Ephemeroptera, and all. Ephemeroptera is mayflies, Odonata is dragonflies. It includes damselflies also. So all these insects are having cerci. These are true abdominal appendage in the 11th segment, and these are multi-segmented in nature. That means numerous segments will be there and it has sensory function. And in Dermaptera or earwigs, it is modified into a forceps-like structure, and in damselflies it is modified into respiratory gills. This picture I have shown you in cockroach, this is the cerci. This is the in earwigs, it is modified into a forceps-like structure. And this is the young one of a damselfly. This is aquatic in nature. And you can see the two cerci over here. This is another structure that we call it as median caudal filament that we will discuss in the next slide. So these two are the cerci, and you can see these cerci are modified into gill-like structure for respiratory purpose. The modification into gill is for increasing the surface area for oxygen exchange or gaseous exchange. So that it is modified, cerci is modified into a gill-like structure in young ones of damselflies. And the next, as I told you, we will discuss about another postgenital abdominal appendage, that is median caudal filament. This is a very thin thread-like projection from the center of the last abdominal segment. That is, it lies between the two cerci. I'll show a picture of it. Okay. This is Thysanura, bristle tails. I think Hasanetizar has completed Thysanura. In Thysanura, you can see the elongated cerci, and here you can see at the center of the last abdominal, 11th abdominal segment, a thin thread-like single segment is single struck appendage is present, that is called as the median caudal filament. So we have a pair of cerci arising from the 11th abdominal segment, and from the center of the 11th abdominal segment we have a thin thread-like median caudal filament. This is the adult Ephemeroptera, adult mayfly. You can see two cerci, and in between you can see the median caudal filament. So median caudal filament is a thread-like projection from the center of the last abdominal segment. This is in between the cerci. This normally seen in Thysanura and Ephemeroptera. Ephemeroptera, this is Ephemeroptera, this is mayfly. This is thysanura, bristle tails and all. Okay. So we discussed postgenital appendages, abdominal appendages, that is cerci, median caudal filament. This is another picture that I will leave. And we have abdominal appendages in young ones of insects, especially in caterpillars. In caterpillars, I will show a picture, then you will be able to understand. I think every one of you must have observed a caterpillar. And in caterpillar, if you observe, you can see this is the head, this is the thoracic legs, foreleg, mid leg, and hind leg. And in the abdomen, you can see certain legs. And these legs are called as prolegs. These legs are present in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and 10th abdominal segments. I will repeat, these prolegs or the abdominal appendages of caterpillars are located in third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and 10th abdominal segment. So this is seen in caterpillars. This is seen in both pregenital as well as the postgenital abdominal segments. That is 3, 4, 5, 6 are pregenital. 10th is postgenital. And these, see, this is more clear. So this is the thorax. These 3 legs are the thoracic legs. These are the prolegs. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. And this is from the ventral side. This is a picture of the ventral side of the proleg. What you see over here is a proleg. This part, the tip of the proleg is a lobe-like structure. This is called the splanta. I will repeat. The tip of the proleg is a lobe-like structure, retractile lobe-like structure. Retractile means it can be withdrawn. Lobe-like structure called a splanta. And this splanta bears hook-like structure. You can see these hooks. Hook-like structures called as crochets. So these are prolegs. These prolegs, at the tip of the proleg, we have lobe-like structure called as splanta. On planta, we have hook-like structure called as crochets. So at the tip of the, that is the apical part of the proleg, we have a protractile lobe called as planta, and the planta will have claws called as crochets that I have shown you. So at the tip, we have a lobe called planta. The planta bears claws called as crochets. And we have seen a gill in the case of modification in cerci, and in certain insects, abdomen itself is modified as gills. This is mainly with certain aquatic insects such as mayflies. In mayflies, the abdomen itself is modified into gills, which for helping in respiration. See, this is the mayfly nymph. This is also aquatic in nature. In Ephemeroptera, you have two cerci and median caudal filament, and the abdomen has projections called as gills. This is to help respiration. So the abdomen is modified into gills for helping respiration. That is with respect to Ephemeroptera or mayfly young ones. And another abdominal appendage is seen in an insect group called as aphids. Aphids is pretty common as a pest in many crops. This is the black insect which is normally seen in cowpea. നമ്മൾ വീട്ടിലൊക്കെ പയർ കൃഷി ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ പയറിന്റെ മുകളിൽ പറ്റി പിടിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു കറുത്ത നിറത്തിലുള്ള പ്രാണി. That is these are aphids. If you observe aphids with the hand lens, on the abdomen you can see a single pair of appendage. You can see it over here. This is the head. These two are antenna. These are legs, foreleg, mid leg, hind leg, and on the abdomen, on the dorsal side of the abdomen, you have a pair of appendage, and these are called as cornicles. So aphids bears a pair of appendage in the abdomen, and this is called as cornicles. And the function of cornicles is to release a defensive substances. That means if it is attacked by some predators or some natural enemy, it will release some substance to escape from these predators. So cornicles, it is defensive in nature. Then coming to the third region, actually it is in between pregenital and postgenital segments. I just included it as in the last part. That is the genital appendages. This genital appendages, I told you, in male it is located in the ninth abdominal segment on the sternal part, and on the females it is located in the eighth and ninth abdominal segments. And the female genital appendage, it is modified into ovipositor. That means to lay the eggs. I will show you. This is a grasshopper. So this is the female grasshopper. This is the female genital appendage. It is modified into an ovipositor to in order to aid laying of the eggs. I will tell you an example. Insects sometimes lay eggs into the plant tissue, inside the plant. So if it has to lay the eggs inside the plant tissue, it needs an ovipositor, a needle-like structure to insert the eggs into the plant tissue. So in some insects, the female genital appendage is modified into an elongate ovipositor. What you see over here, these two are the cerci. And in honeybees, you might have studied about the social organization of honeybees. In honeybees, we have male, which is called as drones. You might study it about in the later. And the male, it is called as drones. Female, we have fertile female and sterile female. Fertile, we have only one fertile female in a honeybee colony. That fertile female, we call it as the queen. The only function of queen is to lay the eggs. While there are large number of sterile females, and these sterile females doesn't lay any eggs at all, but their function is to go for fetching nectar, pollen for the young ones, and also to protect the hive. So, in those sterile female honeybees, we call them as soldier bees. These soldier bees have the ovipositor is modified into a sting. തേനീച്ചയുടെ കുത്തുന്ന ഇത് ശരിക്കും പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അതിന്റെ ഫീമെയിൽ റീപ്രൊഡക്റ്റീവ് സ്ട്രക്ചർ ആണ്. So that ovipositor in the sterile females of honeybees is modified as a stinging organ in order to sting the enemies. You can see this is the picture of a honeybee. You can see here it is stinging a person. So here the female genital appendage, it is modified into a sting. So I am finishing the morphology part. Only one part it is remaining, that is post embryonic development and the metamorphosis. That a single class will be sufficient. That we will deal after the completion of the physiology portions. Okay, if you have any doubt, you can ask. So Ashwini has asked one question: what is the use of Telson for protuberance? I haven't read about any function of Telson for protuberance in any literature. But there is an appendage as a Telson in protuber, but I haven't read what is its function till yet. I will check it again and I will inform you. I will just check it. Actually, this Telson is present in other arthropods, just like shrimp, prawns, horseshoe crabs, and other arthropods. I think that it is a vestigial appendage which is derived from the primitive other arthropods in nature. That means once the insect, any group of organism, once it evolves from time to time, during the evolutionary process, it will gain something and it will lose something. So Telson is present in other arthropods such as shrimps, lobsters, conchilla, chemin, we have Telson. So as it evolved from these crustaceans and all into the insect lost Telson completely, but in between the protuberance retained the part of the crustacean body organization, that is Telson. In crustaceans and all, it is mainly used to keep this help in defensive purpose. In certain insects, it is the tip is the telson is modified into a tail, and it wags its tails to escape from predators. That is one feature with telson in crustaceans. In Protura, I don't know what is the function of telson, but it is mainly a vestigial part of the thing. I will show a picture of telson in shrimps and all. Then can you see the picture now? Yes or yes? This is a shrimp. ഒരു ചെമ്മീനാണ്. What you see the colored part? This is the telson. Actually, this is a part which is present in crustaceans, in other arthropods, but it is lost in insects during the evolution. But it is retained in Protura. I don't think Protura does have any function. In other insects, this is used in other arthropods. I have seen in literature it is used for defensive purpose. So that is the thing. Any other thing? So keep look into your Moodle. I'll be setting up question papers for the remaining things every day. For next 2 to 3 days, there will be a quiz, so you can go through it, attempt those quizzes. If you have any doubt, you can ask it at any time. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you.